Hi, everyone. Welcome to Potluck Food Talks. Today we have, for the first time, Xander with us.
Hello, hello.
Xander is a producer of the show and also partly guilty of creating this concept and this space to talk about food. Hi, Xander. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm happy to finally be on the show and not only behind it.
Xander has a background as a filmmaker and he works on food commercials. And that's the reason we have him today. We're going to talk about food movies, food film, great movies with great food scenes. So what are your thoughts on that?
What are my thoughts on movies about food? No, I think food is a lot about story. No, every dish, everything in life has to do with like a mom cooking a soup for their sick child, or like a guy making some dessert, for the lady he's trying to impress. And I think, amazing food movies, they have amazing food photography, but especially, putting it into like some context, I think there's some very memorable movies about food for sure.
Well, also to mention, Xander and I, we've been friends like for 30 years already, probably.
Yeah. I always say that our parents knew each other before we were even born. So yeah, we hung out a lot.
We lived together, and while Xander was still studying to become a filmmaker, we were living together and we were working on a movie script about cooks. So we were brainstorming a lot what would be interesting to do. And at that time, we watched a lot of culinary movies. I also remember that we wrote a few scenes that we completely discarded them after Ratatouille came out because it had two specific scenes, exactly the concept and the way we had thought of it. Do you want to talk about it?
First, I guess it's important or interesting to say you had just started your adventure as a cook. I had just started an adventure studying film. This was 2007. So I think we had already, lived outside our homes for 2 years, and you were completely excited and you had all these crazy stories. And I was studying film and I was excited about doing something. So I wanted to, tell stories about those things you were telling me. And I guess all these outrageous things that, you were telling me that were super interesting, how these fine dining kitchens work and how crazy the characters inside it are. And we're always film buffs. I think we always watched all the Scorsese movies, like, Casino and stuff. And we wanted to take these movie genres that we know and love and just take it into the cooking world. And for sure, we started like writing some scenes. And yeah, this was 2007. I think the same year Ratatouille came out. And when we went to the cinema, there were at least two scenes that, they nailed exactly some scenes that we were writing. And it was kind of like, no.
But I guess, it's probably common sense because these are very common space feelings. One was, I would say that's the most iconic scene of the movie.
Yeah.
Both of them, I think, with scenes or moments. So one is when this food critic eats something and he gets like an instant flashback to his childhood where his grandmother is cooking. We had the exact same concept for that interaction in that moment, but it's probably because we have felt the same thing many times in our lives. When you try something that reminds you of your childhood, I guess everybody has experienced that.
Yeah, for sure.
And the other one was the moment when the chef eats like two different flavors, and I think like something like fruit holograms appear in front of him, and he mixes them like flavor combinations or something like that, right?
Yeah. Obviously, it being Pixar, they made it in a way that was much cooler than we would have ever imagined. So yeah, I remember him eating, some cheeses. So like some.
I think it's cheese and grapes, right?
Cheese and grapes, but like first he has like the cheese, and then it's like he has the nutty flavors, and blindly describes it, and it's like, in the air around him, like all these colors, and then he eats the other flavor, and then it becomes like this animation of this mixture of flavors. And I remember us, talking a lot about, taking weird things that fit together. And yeah, that was again something where obviously Pixar found a way of visually describing a mixture of flavors, which was mind blowing for us at that time.
Well, also a few things to mention about that movie. Not everybody knows the culinary consultant for this movie was Thomas Keller.
Thomas Keller, yeah.
Yeah, and also this chef, the French chef Cousteau, is inspired in Bernard Loiseau, who was a major figure in the Nouvelle Cuisine, and also like especially in the 90s, he was like a super famous chef in France. And yeah, he kind of looks like him, like the face and everything.
Jacques Cousteau. No, not Jacques Cousteau. Something Cousteau.
Yeah, exactly. I think another super cool and super iconic food scene is garlic slicing in prison and Goodfellas.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That is a classic.
Yeah, I think Anthony Bourdain would reference that scene a lot, like in a lot of his writing and food shows and everything.
Everyone uses it as reference. I think people know exactly how to slice garlic because of that scene.
Yeah, and also in this line of American Italian movies, there is this movie that I also watched while we were writing movie scenes.
I didn't watch it, but I definitely have to put it on my watch list.
It's called Big Night by Stanley Tucci. The movie is not especially a great movie. Also, the food scene is really nice. And they cook like a secret home recipe called timpano, which is an Italian-American dish. And it's a large baked pasta drum filled with layers of pasta, meatballs, sausages, eggs, cheese, tomato sauce, like kind of like a lasagna, but all like in a drum-shaped thing. So that was also pretty cool.
It sounds deliciously nasty.
And I would say if we talk about serious movies like high cinema and a movie that portrays feelings of the culinary craft and all these kind of things, I would say Babette's Fest is my favorite one. I think the movie even won a Best Foreign Film Oscar. And it's a story about like in the 1900s, a French female chef that is running away from Paris. She probably did something, but I think in the movie it's never revealed what. So she hides in a small village in Denmark and she learns to cook from the Danish. And she also at the end has the opportunity to cook for them. And it's this kind of like culture shock, but also I think there are a lot of values that a chef looks for in his career that are very well portrayed in this movie.
No, if you want to talk about like movies where you show every side and story and element of food, I think anyone should watch Tampopo.
Oh, amazing movie. Yeah.
I think Tampopo, the interesting thing, and I'm going to leave the whole like cinematography or whatever out, but I mean, this is the only movie that I know, or the only piece of art that I know that shows every aspect of food in any moment. I mean, like the main story is like these guys want to help Tampopo to save her ramen shop and, make better noodles, make better broth. So they call it a Western.
A ramen Western.
A ramen Western.
A ramen Western instead of a spaghetti Western.
Exactly. So, you have the Lone Ranger who comes into town and he helps the town or saves the day by helping Tampopo, make a really good ramen and save her ramen shop. But then you have all these slices, all these little scenes in between that has nothing to do with the main story. It is like from the beginning that you start with, like you're in the cinema and the people are about to watch the movie we're going to watch, and how, even in cinema, snacks and food is part of the watching experience, but then they're already telling you, eat quiet because I'm going to watch the movie. And then there's this amazing scene. I think that's one of my favorite ones in the movie, where this old lady goes into a supermarket and she has a fetish with squeezing things. So she squeezes the ripe peaches or like the soft cheeses. And, she's obviously destroying the food because she's like squeezing it in her hands. And then the guy who works at the supermarket starts chasing her because he obviously doesn't want her to keep squeezing these things. And it's a thing that you can relate with so much that, like, yeah, obviously food is about texture and softness and you just want to put it in your mouth or in your hands. Also the cultural thing about food. There's this one scene where there's this mother of a family and she's dying, and, the father and the kids are around her and the doctor is there. And I think the father, he doesn't know what to do. So he just tells her to make dinner. And then the woman, like, she stands up and she makes rice and makes a dinner for the family. And then the family eats. Well, she's just there watching them. And once the family has eaten, she drops dead. the function of the mother in this society is making food. So she has to sort of like cook before she drops dead in a way. Or you have there's a scene about this group of Japanese ladies who are learning how to properly eat pasta.
Oh, yeah. Which is like a protocol class, right? And there is this super westernized Japanese guy explaining them how to behave properly and this kind of thing.
Exactly. And how you should never make a sound while you're eating. And then right next to them, there's this, fat old white guy who's slurping away like, and then like all these ladies, stop paying attention to this etiquette master and just start enjoying the food and slurping and just like not giving a fuck about the etiquette.
Yeah, because slurping is part of ramen culture. You have to slurp if you're eating ramen.
Yeah, I mean, this movie is, if you want to dig into what food is and what food can be and how food affects culture and...
Absolutely. I think it's a great example of good old classic naive and cartoony Japanese humor. But at the same time, all the food scenes are very well thought and are very well representative of Japanese food. So if you look about what they're doing, I remember at the beginning, there's this lady with, is it Tampopo? I'm not sure, that has the sukemonos, like Japanese pickles in a rice bran, which is like a specific elaboration. Then you see, it's funny because it's like this Western where with this tough Lone Rangers that walk into a bar and it's like a tough bar, but it's a ramen bar and they're looking the way they cook and the mistakes they do if the water is not boiling properly or if the stock is not at point. And then they start making like this benchmarking of the different ramen bars in the city to see which one is the best.
And it becomes like a heist film, like Ocean's 11 of ramen. Like the team gets together and every person in the group is like a specialist in something else. So one knows about the broth, one knows about the pasta. And so they also go and steal secret recipes from other restaurants.
From the competitors, exactly. They walk into the competitors to see how they do it, which is also like a common place for a chef that wants to open a restaurant, something many of us have done many times. Yet to end, I would say another super nice food movie, because there are a lot of movies that are famous, and many of them, like I've watched many of these movies that try to portray the path of a chef, and they're very fake. You see these chefs like completely clean, and they don't know how to properly hold a knife, and the dynamics you see in the kitchen are not realistic. So that's quite of annoying. But another two good examples I wanted to mention. One was a Taiwanese movie called Eat, Drink, Man, Woman. It's from the 90s. And the intro of this movie, I think it's the best cooking scene ever portrayed in cinema.
Yeah, it's so simple. It's just a man making dumplings.
Yeah, but if you see the skills of this man, like chopping vegetables and doing different things, and it's so pleasurable. And the sounds you feel in the scene, it feels like anyone who has worked in prep cooking will get that feeling of prep cooking, where the kitchen is quiet and the only thing you hear is like the cooking sounds, and there is not the stress of service where everything has to be quick and everybody's screaming. And that moment is very, very well portrayed.
I think also something that you said about like movies we hate about food is, and I guess you can say, okay, there's movies about food where it's more like home cooking, like a very skilled person is cooking at home and they're making really nice dishes. And the other thing you could call like restaurant movies. And what I hate, and I mean, unfortunately, Ratatouille kind of goes into that direction as well, is the critic is the most important villain of this thing. Like it almost seems like these characters are only motivated by, getting the Michelin stars or whatever.
Which is realistic. You will see this kind of attitude in Michelin-starred restaurant.
Because I mean, I remember that when we were writing our cute little food film, you had this character that said like, "Hey, as cooks," or this particular character said like, "Hey, I come from nothing. I'm very uneducated. The only thing I know how to do is cooking. So I really want to, if I want to be someone in this world, I really want to, elevate my cooking skills and take it to the highest form possible, but I don't give a fuck about stars and about, awards."
You see everything. But I mean, like the character of the chef obsessed with stars is not like something made up. It's something.
No, of course. But that's why I think and you haven't watched it, and I tried to convince you to watch it because I think in a way, the essence of this new show catches a little bit what we were trying to go for 15 years ago, which is the show The Bear.
Okay, let's make a deal. I'll watch The Bear and we should both watch this Hannibal Lecter series that was...
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
The main consultant for this series was Jose Andres.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, he was the advisor of how to cook humans for this series. And he would do like...
That's amazing.
Yeah, like, because, the character Hannibal Lecter, he's this super bon vivant gourmet guy who knows a lot about food. So he would do like this super obscure, ancient, sophisticated French dishes with his victims, advised by Jose Andres.
I mean, like, it must be so crazy that, you get a phone call from a production company and they tell you, like, listen up, you have a couple of weeks to think about, what would be the best way of cooking humans, or like what organs would you use to make like really tasty human dishes?
Yeah, it sounds like a fun project to do.
That's it for this week's episode of Potluck Food Talks. If you like what we're doing, make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok as Potluck Food Talks. The show airs every Monday.